Hello everyone, welcome to the When It Worked podcast show with the host Julian Leahy. Today I'm joined by Gary T. Pageau and Keith Anderson. Welcome to the show, guests.
Hello.
Thank you.
How did I go with
Glad to
the
be here.
surname Gary? Pageau?
You know, not bad. Pageau is the way, but
Pageau.
you didn't destroy it, so...
Sounds
props to
very Francais, Gary.
you. Je ne parle français. No.
Oui.
Mais non.
I can say, Je m'appelle Julian. All right, let's go. That's before I embarrass myself any further. The categories today are signs and symbols, turtles, Vienna, 10-letter words, transportation, and world cities. We've actually got Keith on the left. You can kick things off. Oh, we've got a latecomer coming into the stream, but unfortunately, I'm going to have to mute him. He's here, but we've just started. All right, Keith, what would you like?
Oh, okay. Can I get signs and symbols for 300?
Signs
Ooh.
and symbols for 300.
Yeah.
Number of people pictured in the standard school crossing sign. Number of people pictured in the standard school crossing sign.
Oh, 4.
Interesting. Now, it's a mum and maybe a couple of kids crossing, isn't it?
Oh, I guess maybe I'm thinking of something else.
I don't know. Well, I'm in Australia, so it might be different. Let's see if we got 4. It's 2. It's just a mum and a little boy. Why can't it be
Okay,
that?
I was thinking it was referring to the Beatles, so I am
you were
very
thinking
far
of John and Ringo and Paul and George. Different
Yeah.
crossing sign, but I liked it. You're still in control, Keith. What would you like?
Oh, I guess let's do I guess turtles for 200.
I like turtles. Though all species have bony plates on both jaws, no living turtle has these. What? Well, hang on a minute. Though all species have bony plates on both jaws, no living turtle has these. Okay, I gotcha. All right. So they have plates, but there's something that no living turtle has. Why do they
Teeth?
Yeah, it must be teeth. Maybe some of the old dinosaur turtles had teeth. That's what they're talking about. Well done, Keith. Have some sounds for Keith. On the board, 200. Well done. What would you like next?
Oh, geez. I guess let's do signs and symbols for 400.
Signs and symbols 400. Usual number of dots in an ellipsis.
3.
3. What on earth is an ellipsis? 3 is correct. Well done. And is an ellipsis a circle of some sort?
From what I remember, maybe from like middle school or elementary school, it's those 3 dots that you have at the sentence.
Oh, like when
the
to
end of some
continue
sentences.
something? Like,
Yeah.
there you go.
That's what I think, yeah.
Well, you got it anyway. Well done. Keith, what would you like next?
Oh, geez. I'm really killing it here. I guess signs and symbols for 500. Let's
Famous
do it.
last words, Keith. Signs and symbols 500 from the Latin radix,
Oh, no.
meaning root. It's the name of the root symbol in mathematics. From the Latin radix. Any idea, Gary? No idea.
I mean, I know what the square root symbol is. I
Yeah,
just
I
don't
call it
know
the
what
square
it's
root
called.
symbol. Let's take a look. What do we call it? It's the radical.
Oh,
Wow,
Okay.
I thought that was something to do with skateboarding. All right, you're still in control, Keith.
really? Okay, wow. This, okay, well, let's try turtles for 300.
Turtles for 300. The snapping turtle snaps not just to be mean, but because it can't do this for protection.
It can't. Well, I don't know. It can't.
Gary, if you know,
Like
jump in.
you. Yeah.
What is can't retract its head?
Can't retract its head is correct. Well done. Gary's on the board. That was 300 points. Gary, you're in control. What would you like?
Oh my gosh. I didn't realize I knew so much about turtles. So
I know.
let's go with turtles for 400.
Turtles for 400. Some of the largest land turtles are found on these islands off the coast of Ecuador.
Hey, oh gosh.
What islands have we got?
I'm just gonna throw one out. Where? What is Easter Island?
Easter Island.
I
No, it.
Oh, Keith, you were going to jump in. What was it?
The Galapagos
You got
Islands.
it. The Galapagos. Well done, Keith.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
And you're in control now, Keith.
Okay.
I'm getting my butt kicked here.
I never thought I would be so good with turtles, but I guess turtles for 500. Why not?
Both of you are turtle experts. The FDA bans sale of most pet turtles since they often carry this gastrointestinal disease bacteria.
Oh, Jesus.
It'll be one of the ones that
I don't know this one.
well known that makes you have food poisoning.
What is salmonella?
Salmonella. There's that one, and then there's E. coli, and then maybe another one, Calypbacter or something. Let's see if it's salmonella. It is salmonella. Well done, Gary. You are the turtle expert. What would you like?
Let's finish out turtles for 100.
Turtles for 100. Popular category. The turtle is the only reptile that has this obvious feature.
An external shell.
External shell. Now, a tortoise also has an external shell, so are we considering them the same? A shell. Okay, well, that's what they say. That's what Jeopardy says. Well done, Gary. What about a shrimp?
Right.
Don't they have an external shell? Hang on a minute. Anyway.
They're not a reptile.
Exactly. There you go. Gary, continue on. What would you like?
Let's do transportation for 300.
Transportation for 300. In 1957, an Air Force doctor stayed a record 32 hours in the stratosphere in one of these.
What is a balloon?
Interesting. A balloon. Keith, do you want to have a jab?
Sure. What's a spaceship?
Spaceship. It is a balloon. Well done, Gary. Well, that's exciting. Katy Perry missed out on that one. What would you like, Gary?
I'm sure if she was around, we would have heard about it.
Yeah.
For hours on end.
She probably regrets going up in that.
I think so. Oh gosh, let's stay with transportation for 400.
Transportation 400. In the Old West, this railroad, named for 3 cities, was said to have started nowhere and went nowhere. 3 cities.
Yeah, I'm thinking I can see it in, it's one of those things I can see it here, but I can't get it to my mouth. So
we might know it when we see it. Keith, do you have any idea?
Right.
No.
No, me either. It is the very small Atkinson, Topeka, and Santa Fe line.
Well, that's not what I thought.
Nah. I only know everything I learned from
It
Tombstone.
looks like the B&O or something like that. But anyway.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, what would you like next, Gary?
Let's do transportation for 200.
Transportation for 200. On July 21, 1959, the first cargo ship powered by this was launched at Camden, New Jersey.
Well, we're going to go with nuclear power.
That's about the time when they were making everything nuclear. That's a good answer.
Right.
It is correct. Well done, Gary. What would you like?
Well, let's go with 10-letter words for 300.
10-letter words for 300. When a paper has erroneously reported a statement or story, it may print one of these.
A
He's counting them out. He knows the answer.
what is a retraction?
Retraction's got to be. Surely
I don't
I'm
know
not
if that's
even going to
correct,
count it.
but-
Retraction is correct. Well done, Gary.
Yeah.
You don't want to have a retraction printed about you because
Well, I've been in media for a long time, so that's
there you go.
a common phrase. So, 10-letter words for 200.
10 letters for 200. Instead of being hospitalized, many who are sick can be treated on this basis.
What is outpatient?
Outpatient. He was just no hesitation. Correct. Well done, Gary.
Yeah.
And let's switch it up and go to Vienna for 300.
Vienna for 300. We tell you no tales. Wienerwald is the German word for these.
What are sausages?
The answer is the Vienna Woods.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I thought it was like a amusement park like Wally World from National Lampoon.
Well, I was going with Wiener sausage.
Wiener World.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, you're still in control, Gary. What would you like?
Let's go signs and symbols for 200.
Signs and symbols for 200. An asterisk on a weather map doesn't refer you to the bottom, but indicates this condition.
What is snow?
Does it? It is correct. Well done, Gary.
Wow.
Did not
And
know that.
let's go with 100 to clear that out. Signs and symbols.
Signs
for
and
100.
symbols 100. A tent with a diagonal line over it means this is prohibited.
What is camping?
Camping is correct. Well done, Gary. You're on fire. You're on 2,200. Keith's still in touch. He's got 1,000 points. What would you like, Gary?
Oh gosh. Let's go with transportation for 100.
Transportation for 100. Ironically, this Chicago airport was named for a naval hero.
O'Hare?
That's the one. That's the only one I know. Let's take a look. It
Yeah.
is correct. O'Hare. Why is that irony? If it was named after a rabbit, that would be irony.
Because Chicago's inland, maybe.
There you go. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I mean, it is near a lake, but it's not.
Yep.
Near
No
an ocean,
submarines
so.
in there. Keith,
Yeah.
what would you like?
Let's do world cities for 300.
World cities for 300. Though Amman used to be named this, it wasn't home to a Jordanian bandstand TV show. We're looking for a world city. Used to be called Amman.
Isn't it still called that? If I'm
Oh,
thinking
hang on.
right.
Amman used to be
Yeah.
called this. So the old name of Amman. And they're saying,
Oh,
I don't know, Bandstand is an old TV show. I don't know. This one's pretty cryptic. Let's take a look.
yeah.
Does that say Philadelphia? Goodness me. Well, we need to go.
I think that's where American Bandstand was filmed from.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's really
wow.
a stretch, isn't it?
But nobody knows where that was filmed. I mean, that show hasn't been on the air for how long?
30 years, maybe.
30 years. If they had
Dick
said
Clark's been
home
there
of
for a long
Rocky
time.
Balboa, but I did not know that Amman, there was a Philadelphia in Jordan. Bizarre. Not bizarre. Anyway,
Yeah.
Keith, what would you like?
Let's do world cities for 200.
World cities for 200. It's the most famous industry of the Netherlands town of Edam.
Flowers?
That's a good answer because they have all the tulips and so on, but I think it's something else because we have something in the supermarket, Edam something, which makes me think it might be something else.
Chocolate?
It's another
don't
good
know.
answer, but I don't know if that's correct. Do you have any idea?
Me?
Gary.
What are nuts?
It is actually cheese. Cheese, yeah. So we have Edam cheese down here in the store.
Okay.
So that's why I knew that one. But yeah, you wouldn't think that they are famous for cheese in the Netherlands, and it's kind of orange and a little. Oh, I won't say it's strange. I'm sure it's fine. Anyway, Keith, what would you like?
Can we do? Let's do Vienna for 400.
Vienna for 400, and then we'll do one more after that and wrap it up so we don't go too long. The Viennese version of this dance was so fast it made dancers dizzy. The Viennese something. Something your grandparents...
Waltz?
Oh, yes. That's,
Can I jump in? Or
well, Keith said waltz. What have you got, Gary?
that's what I was going to say. Viennese
Okay.
waltz.
Keith beat you to the punch. Well done, Keith. You are on 1,200.
Yeah.
Gary's on 2,200. One more question, Keith. What would you like?
So I guess let's do world cities for 500.
If you get this right, we'll keep going. Give you a chance to come back. World cities. If you take a case to the Swiss Supreme Court, you have to go to this French-speaking city near Geneva.
Sorry.
So half of Switzerland speaks French and the other half speaks German.
Yeah.
What's the French city near Geneva?
French city.
I don't know any
Not
Swiss.
Zurich.
Or
not
Zurich.
Zurich.
That's Switzerland, isn't it? Although that
Yeah,
sounds
but
very
I don't-
German to me. Anyway.
It is, but it's not that. A Basel?
Let's take a look. It is. This is another one. Yeah, Lausanne. See, that sounds French,
I
and
would.
they have
that
that
does
name
sound
on
French.
cosmetics. So
Yeah.
that's how I know that one. All right, well let's wrap it up there. End of the game. 1,200. Keith was coming on strong. Might have been able to get there, but we don't want to push it. And Gary, well done. 2,200. All right, we'll wrap that up now, and let's pop over to Keith and tell us,
Congratulations,
Keith,
Gary.
what have you been
Thank
up
you.
to? You worked in the tech world. What did you do in tech?
Yeah, so I did a bunch of things, but I went from being a web developer and designer at Google and Uber to becoming a senior leader at companies like Meta, DoorDash, and a startup called Calibrate. And right now, I work with people who are making a similar transition to what I did about 10 years ago. My, I guess, origin, or before I was doing tech, I was a teacher earning $27,000 a year. I was burnt out, tired. I knew I wanted to get out. I did a year and a half of soul searching, and my first job out of that was at Google as a web developer. So I help people who are in similar situations where they know that they're on a path that isn't really right for them anymore, and I help them find what that new thing is and then land a new role in that new field or area.
So did you live, did you have to work in the Silicon Valley, or were you able to work remotely?
So both. I worked in the Bay Area, so San Francisco Bay Area. So yeah, I mean, I went to school there, right? So kind of moving into tech, it's like a natural progression, as that's like the industries around there. So yeah.
Well, you must have been pretty good, because Google and Meta don't hire dummies.
Well, I mean, it's relative, I guess. I don't know. Like, they're just companies, right? They're just like any other companies. There's, they're great. They're great places to work, and great people work there. But there are many great places out there as well too, besides them.
And when you work
people.
at Meta, did you ever have meetings with Zuck? Because I would love to be in a meeting with Zuck.
Well, I mean, there were all hands where he spoke to all of us, but no, I didn't have any meetings like at that like C-suite level.
Gotcha.
which would have been interesting. It would have been, yeah, I don't know, especially how things have changed there from Facebook when I was there to Meta and like VR and all those things. It must have been interesting discussions going on there.
Yeah. What do you think about the Meta move? Is it is he a genius or is it um, misguided?
It, it's a good question. Well, I'll tell you this. So I joined Facebook when it was Facebook because I really believed in the mission of connecting the world and businesses together, right? Through like authentic connections. I really value that. When things shifted to more of the VR stance and like really like bringing avatars together, I guess you could say, right? Or
Mhm.
digital people. It kind of lost my enthusiasm for working with the company. I mean, I is he on to something? I don't know. Maybe it'll pan out into something huge in like 10 years or so. Right now, though, I I'm not sure it's quite there, to be honest. Um,
Yeah.
but
Well, it's interesting. I
yeah,
mean, I sort of am holding back judgment because I definitely feel like he was right in the sense that Facebook is not going to be relevant forever because he seemed to be right on the money with that, and so I just don't really get what he's doing with Meta, but he's smarter than I am, so I'm interested to see how it pans out. Anyway, tell us about what you're doing. So you're helping people get into tech, is that right?
yeah. So I help people who are in a career path that just they feel stuck in. It no longer inspires them, and they no longer want to work in that area, but they don't know really what to do. And even if they do have an idea of what that next path is, just they have no idea how to get there, right? So working together, we unpack those pieces, build up build up confidence, and then navigate through the quote unquote hidden job market, the paths and avenues where you're building authentic connections with people in your target companies and your target roles. So you're able to land roles on the hidden job market, jobs that aren't posted with ease, without
Yes.
push and like praying and hoping that recruiters reach out.
Yeah, the ones that you see advertised on, what do you have over in the States? Not Seek, you have Career One or something?
Indeed,
Yeah, Indeed.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've heard of that one. Yeah, so those ones, they're the kind of long shot where there's a position and they must advertise it as part of the rules of the company. But more
yeah.
often than not, it's somebody, like you said, from the hidden job market. And is that what you utilized to get from teaching into tech, would you say, Keith?
Yeah, 100%. And it's something before I knew it was that. I mean, basically, in a nutshell, what it is having conversations with people and leading through curiosity, right? And seeing unpacked doors that are there with the connections that you build. And yeah, I mean, that's essentially how I moved into Google and all these other companies was um, leading with curiosity when meeting people and not as pushing myself out of my comfort zone, right? Because like going from teaching at a university as an adjunct professor, right?
Mhm.
We're talking to people at Google who are just very different than I was at the time was a stretch and it was really hard for me. But if I didn't take that leap and just went out of my comfort zone, I don't know if I would have been working at Google or any of these other tech companies.
Right.
So I think applying online, just like on job boards, it hasn't worked that well in general. But now the statistic is 0.03% people get callbacks from recruiters from just applying. So
Right.
that's like, it's a joke, right? Like you
Yeah.
can't. It's a form of insanity if you keep on applying to like 100, 200, 300 jobs and you're not hearing back. It's insanity if you keep on doing things that don't work. So I
Right.
teach people what do work, and honestly, it's just goes back to human connection, right? Like we are all hardwired to build relationships with people. And once you do that and you start building trust with people and their guard goes down, then you're able to really see how you can work together in the organizations and beyond that too.
So, what do we do to find these people, build relationships and trust with them so that opportunities can open up? Are there any practical tips you can give us?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say that, like, you know, a lot of people do and try networking, either going to networking events or cold messaging people on LinkedIn. Now, with those, like, yes, I mean, it can be good, in particular using LinkedIn to reach out to people and connect, but it's the way that you connect with them, right? So a lot of people are doing it with the pretense of, like, I want a job, I need this, and it's kind of that
You can just
desperation that
smell
comes
the
across.
desperation or the sales
Right.
pitch.
You're right. And, like, you don't know, these people don't know you when you're reaching out to them. It's like, why the hell would I want to talk to you? Or, like, what's in it for me? Right. So
Right.
always be thinking. So my advice is, when you start initiating conversations with people, learn about them, understand about them, um, and realize, like, what's in it for them for talking with you. And that doesn't necessarily mean, like, specific value or like them hiring you, but it could just be like some of these innate things that are part of humanity, like mentoring, helping people, like, um, you know, being getting validation for the great work that they're doing, from their LinkedIn profile. These things add a lot of value that are not usually seen as that. So, like, really lean into these areas that are not just you and your neediness of, like, what I want, but how are you building, like, a mutual relationship? I mean,
Mhm.
and last thing, people see, like, networking in the job market and meeting people there at these, like, big companies like Google is, like, I don't know, for some reason very different than meeting people anywhere else. I don't know. But at the end of the day, these companies like Google, Meta, all these companies, it's really just a big group of people, like,
Mhm.
just like you and me. So, like, just connect with people, like, to, try not to overthink this, like, grandiose perception of the people you're talking to, because they're just living just like we all do. So, um, yeah.
Can you give us an example, Keith, of a situation where either you or somebody that you've mentored has done something for somebody, helped them, as a means to forming a connection?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, there's a few different ways to do this. And, excuse me. And this is what I teach, folks in my program. So, some of them, um, it's about being a listening board and asking questions about the person's unique experience, right? That is actually adding value. Yeah, it's not like giving them a physical gift,
Yeah.
but, um, a lot of times people know they have a lot of experience that you're talking to, but they have never been asked to, like, give advice for it, or, like, solidify, put into words their knowledge. So that's a big one. Another big one is, sharing another connection with someone, like, oh, hey, I noticed that you are doing blah, blah, blah. Like, there's this other person that I know that, is doing something similar. I'd love to connect you guys. um, and that might seem counterintuitive because you're, looking for a job, but at the end of the day, you're helping people. That's what it is, right? And you're helping people from a sense of not like this hidden agenda you
Yeah.
have, right? But, like, what you feel that they need, right? And then additionally, after you start to have built a rapport with someone, and you have a conversation with them on Zoom or in person, and you want to work at that company, then I recommend like getting essentially intel from them on like what are the big pain points, the problems that organization is facing, and then like actually create like a value project or be able to have solutions to those problems that they're solving, and share that very clearly with them and then other people that you meet within that organization to show that you are an insider and you think just like them, right? That's how you get hired. People want to hire people that they feel comfortable with and that they know have similar mindset. So you just need to show that when you're talking to people.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you are finding out the pain point or the particular problem that a particular organization is big on at that moment, and then are you talking about producing content and material on LinkedIn that shows that you are interested in solving that problem as well? Is that what you were saying?
Sort of, yeah. So it doesn't necessarily need to be this like huge thing you do on LinkedIn, you know. I would say that like the pain points and the tips that you get are actually things that are not like these huge company-wide initiatives, but are usually like a smaller department or a smaller section, like
Right.
in marketing. What are your big bets for Q1 or what have you? And then from there, when you meet other people in those organizations, you have a solution and you say things like, oh, I talked to Marco and he told me you guys are doing this type of stuff. You know, I want to share some thoughts that I have on like what this could be like, right? You're showing yourself as an expert or someone who's a team player in that area. And it could just be verbal, but it can also be just like a one-sheeter or like a short presentation that basically it just identifies their problem. It gives like a small analysis of what's going on, and then potential solutions or some opportunities. You know, and it works. It works really well. I mean, this is how I moved into some of these big tech companies, right? Like I didn't have any experience, but you have to really put yourself out there and show that like you know what you're doing. And even though people might not know you that well in the organization, you know, they're willing to take a risk on you because you're not as unknown as all these millions of other people who are applying online who,
Yeah.
you know,
You're not just
you
a
only see their
CV on a
resume.
pile of CVs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, interesting. Well, this is a very interesting approach, and it's basically networking in the digital world. And there's a lot of people talk about this type of thing. Gary Vee does this type of thing as well. When he has somebody that he wants to have a conversation with, he finds out about the person, he finds out about problems they're facing, and you know, and then helps them. And then there's that little relationship, and yeah, it's a very, very smart way of operating. And so people can get to your website and download the playbook. What's in the playbook?
So the playbook shares my methodology of where you go from being a bit confused about where your path is and how to navigate kind of those next steps into actually making that move through something I call career attraction, which is basically, you know, it's focused on charisma. How are you building out a charisma persona in your quote unquote marketing funnel for your personal brand? And how are you increasing your stickiness so people want to connect with you, want to get to know you, and then that eventually leads down to landing roles for people who are transitioning careers or people who are looking to level up their career, like go from individual contributor to manager, or manager to director, or VP, or what have you.
Interesting. So that's Keith Anderson, everybody. And if you want to get the playbook, it's keithandco. And you can also, we'll have his LinkedIn in the show notes if you want to reach out and have a chat to Keith. Thank you very much, Keith.
Thank you.
10 minutes spare. You're good to go if you want.
Okay. I would appreciate it. Thank you, guys. It was so wonderful doing this.
Thanks,
Good to see you,
Keith.
Keith.
Great having you on, and thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Yeah. Thank you guys too. Bye.
Bye.
All right, Gary. Now tell us about what you've been up to. You spent a lot of time working internationally in a non-profit, and you talk about how to build an audience, how to get better at communication. Is that in the
Yeah, actually, it's kind of interesting. What I've done is very similar to kind of what Keith has done, in the sense that reaching that personal connection and expanding your sphere of influence through that is kind of what I've done through my career. Like you said, I worked at a nonprofit in the photographic industry, which is sadly not in existence anymore. It was a organization, basically, which was a trade association is basically a group that advocates for a specific class of trade. So in our case, it was the photography industry. So it's people like camera stores and things like that. And we had an annual convention and trade show which did very well for about 70 years, and then as a lot of things happened that affected the industry, one of which was film going away and the transition to digital and things like that. So the number of our members decreased, so our show got smaller and it couldn't sustain our staff anymore. And that's basically what happened. But so what I've done is, and that happened around, I left in 2012 and the organization kind of declined and went defunct about 3 years later. And I'd been there 25 years. I was planning to die there, and it just the world changed. So what I've done is I've created a community around that kind of hopes to fill the void that organization had once created, right? So again, it was a lot of personal networking, a lot of taking interest in other people and that sort of thing, because again, it's not about, hey, what can you do for me? It's what can I do for you, right? So my primary thing is I do a newsletter and a podcast, etc., called the Dead Pixel Society, and I think it's there on that little thing there, and so it's basically a newsletter for that community, and it's also a podcast, and also we've gotten into actually in-person meetings. We had an in-person meeting a month ago, a small executive type conference. So yep. So there you go. So yeah, and it's all about, in the case of, my audience, it's about finding ways to bring them together and finding ways to exchange information for them to network, because, and it's a global audience. I mean, 25% of my podcast listeners are outside the US, and I've featured companies from Australia and things like that. And there's value there. I mean, people really appreciate it.
100%. And you talk about using content to build your business. What are some of the best ways that you tell people to use?
Well, I mean, the reality is if you're worried about AI, for example, that's a big issue right now, right? With people who are in the content business, and AI can replace you if you're not very good and if you don't understand your audience, right? Part of my secret sauce is I know what my audience wants, so I give them that. And do I use AI tools to enhance that? Absolutely. Like, for example, you've got the podcast up on the screen. So my host for my podcast, for example, does an AI summary of the podcast, right? It listens to the podcast and it picks out the base points. So I can use that to do blog posts and things, but I still have to create the audio content. I still have to edit that so it's relevant, because as good as AI is, it's not perfect in the sense where it can listen to that and actually extract all the great points. So I think the key to having any kind of, content business is to have a defined audience. Like, I know who my people are, and just cater to them and try and resist the temptation to just kind of be everywhere. For example, about 30% of my podcast guests aren't even from the industry, right? They're just general business people. There's marketing, SEO, how to exit your business, those kind of guests, because I know my audience wants some of that. They don't want to just hear about their own business, what's in the industry. They also want to hear things that are relevant outside the industry. And sometimes those are some of my best received episodes is, those general business topics that I tie to them.
And apart from the podcast, you use the podcast to bring people over to your business. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, primarily the biggest part of my revenue model is the newsletter itself, right? We got sponsors and very traditional stuff. And the podcast is really designed as a way to kind of expand the audience for the newsletter, because, the podcast reaches people that may or may not subscribe, right? So it's really more of a carrot and a stick sort of thing. I use the content in the podcast to almost like a recruitment mechanism, if you will. For example, let's say somebody's doing something cool and I don't have a relationship with them, right? I can ask them to be a guest on the podcast to talk about their favorite topic, which is their business. And now they're my friend or I have a relationship with them now, right? Which then can turn into, hey, maybe I can have them speak at one of my conferences. Maybe I can have them do something else. So it's really the podcast is a great way just to build relationships with people that you want to have a relationship with. It started kind of as an accident, really. I started I've been doing the newsletter now for almost 8 years, but the podcast has only been around since early COVID. And I was just like, oh my gosh, are my sponsors going to dry up? My industry isn't going to go away, because that's what everyone thought during COVID, right? No one knew what was going to happen. So I said, I'm got to do twice as much content. I'm going to double down. And I just found out, if you launch a podcast during COVID, guess what? People got time on their hands for a lot of people, and they want to sit and talk about their business or what they'd like to be doing or things like that. So it's really, I don't monetize it directly. I don't have sponsors who are directly sponsoring the podcast, but it is a great way to feature people in the industry, because, the podcast is really about the guest. It's not about me specifically, right? My picture does not appear. It's not about me. It's about the guest. And if you do that, I've found that's been very successful for growing everything else I need to grow.
And how do we join your news list, Gary?
Oh, it's just very easy. I mean, it's just sign up on just go to thedeadpixelssociety.com. And I've got a sign-in sheet there. The newsletter's free. I don't charge for that. Comes out every week. So it's a weekly newsletter, free newsletter. And, I've got a couple enhancements here and there, but it's primarily just an opt-in newsletter. That's really the thing and that's actually right there. You see, that was my conference from a few weeks ago. I really focus on, there you go. And I want to, make it organic, that people who opt in are highly engaged, right? So my open rate is over 40%. I got a very high click-through rate on articles, mainly because, I'm not out buying lists. I'm not just trying to build a giant list. I'm trying to build the right list.
That's the key, isn't it? And that's something that changed. It used to be, how do I build the biggest list? And now people are finding that it's better to have a engaged list that's more targeted and smaller. So I've accidentally triggered a laughter soundtrack there. Just ignore that on the replay. Well, that's great. So check out Gary's podcast, Dead Pixel Society, and check out his newsletter as well. It's very interesting what he's doing. Even if you want to see how to do a newsletter, you can see what Gary's doing and get to know Gary. And how often do you put episodes out of the podcast?
Well, the podcast goes out every day, every week, Thursday at 2 p.m. So Eastern time. It's like clockwork. And again, I have that pretty much down to a process, it's a Zoom call recording kind of thing. It's audio only, although I do have a YouTube and Instagram, just like short videos I post. Again, it's good for engagement and good for promotion, but I don't think anyone wants to see, two talking heads talking on video, unless they're doing a cool game like we just did, right?
Yes, well, that's the thing. So, well, that's great. And how long have you been doing this for? You've done quite a few episodes, haven't you?
Oh yeah, we're at 215 or 16 right now. So yeah, we've been doing it 4 or 5 years. It's we've had everyone from some of the best photographers on the planet to CEOs to people running a camera store in a rural location. So it's a wide variety of people. I like to say my niche is very large. It's very narrow, right? It's basically people in the imaging industry who are basically serving photographers, but it's very, very deep. So it goes from everyone from your, like I said, your corner camera store, which again, there's not many of those anymore, but they're still around, to on up to Shutterfly and billion-dollar companies. So that's my niche.
Awesome. Well, it's a great idea. And if you're interested in that whole world of photography, in various ways, maybe you're a retailer, maybe you work for a company that targets photographers. There's a whole lot of different industries, and you sort of will talk to anybody that's related to the industry. So if you're in the photography game, check out the Dead Pixel Society, and you've got a little community that you've built as well, which is exciting. So check that out. Get on the newsletter, and but listen to the podcast. That's the best way to find out what Gary's up to.
Yep, and find out if it's for you. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of variety of topics there. I mean, I don't try to be, the same topic every month or every week or anything like that. Sometimes it's general business topics. Sometimes it's very, very specific to the industry. So it's for example, this week the guest is a person who started after 30 years working for the biggest school photography company in the UK. He left the company and started his own business, and he's been 4 or 5 years and having his own business. And so, that may not interest you, but it may interest you just for the story of how someone in their mid-50s starts their own business, and the challenges and how they use their experience and expertise to really do some pretty innovative things.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great stuff, and if you're in that particular position where you are looking to get into a different industry and you're at a certain age and you're facing all those challenges and self-doubts, that's a great one to learn. Podcasts are great for this type of stuff, and so you can learn so much from real people. And the information, you seem to retain it when you listen to it, I find.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yep.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Well, that's Gary Pageau. That's the Dead Pixel Society podcast. Thank you very much for coming on, Gary.
Hey, thank you so much. Thank you, Julian.
Wonderful. Check out Gary's stuff. Links are in the show notes. I'm going to wrap things up. Thanks for listening. See you next time, everyone.